Okay, are we ready to hear about shrinkflation? Why you're paying more for less everywhere. Okay, because my Cadbury cream eggs are not as big as they used to be. And I'm probably paying more. Okay? My Cadbury cream eggs are probably like half the size of what they used to be. Okay? And that is absolutely unacceptable. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Because corporate greed. Yes, exactly. Yippee! Economics! Pulling up my journal for notes. Okay. Let's see.
Welcome to another video about a problem that is driving people absolutely bananas. Today we're talking about shrinkflation.
If you feel like your favorite products are getting smaller, it's because they are.
Yeah, like my Cadbury cream eggs. I'm really sad. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Yup. There's like almost no middle class anymore. Crazy.
Size, large size.
68, 69, 70.
The cookies are shrinking.
Companies are out here gaslighting us.
I'm fed up. You ever go for the last chip in the Dorito bag and suddenly say, whoa?
They're advertising.
Yeah, because the freaking size. Okay. When you get a bag of chips, okay, and you get like those big bags that you're supposed to be able to share for your family, okay? But this bag is only a quarter full. More than half the bag is just air. You're paying for almost a bag of just air. Even the bowberries are shrinking. I'm pissed cosmic brownies are half the size they used to be. Oh my god. I never ate cosmic brownies that much. But I don't doubt you, considering how much my friggin' Cadbury eggs shrunk. Didn't someone literally prove Lay's fills the bag with air? Really? Hold on. Lay's fills bag with air. Lay's has officially come up with by making air-filled chips. Oh. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. Let's just fill it with air, it's fine. The cookies are shrinking, Cookie Monster and Cookie Monster's in shambles. Big family bag of Lay's with 80% air. Yeah, honestly though, like really, I used to, because like I'll buy Jello a bag of the big bag of chips, right? When we do our grocery shopping, I'll get him one bag for the week. And he's finished the bag. He's done the bag in 2 days. Sometimes even in 1 day. And I used to sit there and be like, bro, stop eating your chips all in like 1 day. But now I look inside and I'm like, you know what? It is kind of just enough for like 1 sitting. Or 2 sittings. I would like to wish everyone a wonderful night and pleasant dreams. Okay, Eli. You as well. Sleep good. Big bag equals more space for air corporations. Look how much air we can fit in this. I used to get Chips Ahoy cookies and they're a lot smaller than they used to be. Yeah, I noticed that when I got them before. When I got them last time. I get cookies now that I like better. They're President's Choice brand, which I think is just Canada specific. But yeah, the Chips Ahoy cookies are a lot smaller. They are worried about chips getting crushed in shipping. They could package it similar to cereal. Oh yeah. No. But I don't think that's their concern, really. Yeah. A family-sized bag. Oh, I'm somewhat of a family myself. I only buy cookies at Costco now. I try not to buy cookies because last time we bought a big thing of Oreos, and Jello ate all the Oreos in almost one night, and I was very upset. I was very upset. I watched him pulling out like the last few or something, leaving just one behind because he seen me looking at him, and I was like, bro, I did not even have one yet. And he was like, well, I left you one just now. And I was like, yeah, thanks. Okay. Hello, Ken. Hello. Welcome in. I'm doing all right. We ranting about shrinkflation. I'm guilty too. Wow. Leave cookies for your girlfriends and wives. Leave some cookies for them too. They will absolutely adore you for it. At least bro was generous to leave one. Oh my gosh. I don't blame him. Would have been better if he ate all of them. One is devious. We shall have a funeral for those missed Oreos. God dang it. You get cookies, leave some for your wives, okay? Or girlfriends or fiancés, whatever. Or boyfriends or husbands, okay?
As if, hey, you're going to get this great value.
And it's not true.
It's not fair. It needs to be regulated, and it needs to be regulated now.
This shrinkflation stuff is getting out of control.
Me hate shrinkflation. Me cookies are getting smaller.
Shrinkflation.
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 Politicians are arguing, TikTokers are up in arms, and even the Cookie Monster has issued a statement regarding shrinkflation. Blitz reported that 71% of Americans have experienced or noticed instances of shrinkflation. And I don't know about you, but I am definitely part of that statistic. Bags of chips seem lighter, toilet paper seems to run out faster, chocolate bars look suspiciously thinner, and so much more. What the heck is going on here? Well, like always, I am determined to find out. Why are products seemingly shrinking? What actually is shrinkflation? How did we get here? Who is to blame? What's being done about this? What can consumers do about it? And more. Let's dive in.
Started with
they say
bread.
Size doesn't matter, but history and shrinkflation prove otherwise. The textbook definition of shrinkflation is when companies reduce the size, quantity, or quality of their products while keeping the prices the same. While the news, the internet, and the whole wide world might make it seem like a brand new phenomenon, it's actually far from it. Believe it or not, the concept of shrinkflation dates back to 13th century England. In medieval England, the size of bread was one of the most widely enforced statutes of its time. The law regulated the price, weight, and quality of bread to protect consumers and ensure bakers didn't exploit fluctuating grain prices. Essentially, the principle dictated that a unit loaf of bread would be sold at a constant price to maintain fair access to staple foods even during times of economic hardship. But because of this mandate, when the market price of grain or rye increased, bakers had to reduce the size of their loaves of bread to maintain the regulated price. An early example of shrinkflation driven by economic necessity. Crazy, huh? Over the years, much like in medieval England, society has continued to grapple with producers decreasing product sizes while maintaining the same price in various forms. So why does this suddenly seem like a hot new topic? Well, for a few reasons. First, back in the 13th century, these were usually small town bakers just adjusting the size of their bread out of necessity. Now it's big, massive companies doing the same thing. And it's up
like there's a difference between necessity, I think, and greed. You don't need to shrink these things. You're only doing it to maximize your profit. That's what the difference here is. That was some fluffy hair. It took me out of the loop. Warped. Same, honestly. When she was talking, I was just watching her hair bounce. It was amazing. It was awesome.
Debate whether they're acting out of necessity or simply chasing corporate profits. But we'll cover that later. The second reason this is a hot topic is because of the internet, baby. The internet has brought this issue to the forefront. As societies become more online, we've also become more informed consumers. Subreddits, TikToks, and even entire websites exist dedicated to outlining instances of companies shrinking product sizes. A couple hundred years ago, you couldn't take pictures of Doritos bags, post them online, and compare sizes. But now you can. And with the rise of modern consumerism, we needed a term to describe this economic phenomenon. Enter shrinkflation. Coined by British economist Pippa Milgram and added to Merriam-Webster's dictionary in 2022, the term is everywhere, and so are its effects. From household staples like toilet paper rolls mysteriously losing a few sheets to chocolates quietly shredding a square or two, today's shrinkflation has become a widespread consumer frustration. Household paper products have shrunk while their prices have shot up 35%. Cleaning supplies, same story. Smaller bottles, but prices up 24.5%. Even canned fruits and veggies are pulling a disappearing act, with prices climbing 23.7%. Now sure, it's normal for the prices of consumer goods to rise over time. Generally speaking, inflation drives up the cost of things like raw ingredients and transportation. However, when higher prices are combined with shrinking product sizes, it's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. And on top of all this, topics like shrinkflation and the economy have become deeply politicized. It's harder than ever to sift through the noise and figure out what's really going on as a consumer. That's why media literacy and staying informed are more important than ever, and why I'm excited to partner with Ground News for this video. Today's sponsor. Ground News makes news consumption transparent by aggregating thousands of articles from around the world every day and organizing them by story. Whether you're using their app or website, it completely changes the way you digest news.
I use Ground News,
easily
but
compare
it
how outlets
confuses
from
me a
all
little
sides
bit.
of the spectrum, left, right, or center, cover the same event. Take the ongoing story about Trump's tariff plan. With Ground News, you can see dozens of articles discussing how tariffs could potentially affect Americans. Interestingly, the majority of the coverage comes from left-leaning outlets. So if you primarily follow middle-of-the-road or conservative news sources, you might have missed this. And on top of all this, Ground News has a feature called the Blind Spot feed,
Thinking
which
of the
highlights stories that are
advertisements going,
underreported by one
new
side of
and
the political
improved.
spectrum or the other.
Now with
This gives you
10% less
multiple
product.
perspectives and allows you to make more informed decisions on complex issues. If you're ready to broaden your view of the world and make smarter, more informed decisions, head to ground.news/Zackary or scan the QR code on the screen. You'll get an exclusive 50% discount on Ground News Unlimited Access Vantage plan, bringing the cost down to just under $5 a month. It's the same plan I use, and you know I only recommend brands I trust. A big thank you to Ground News for sponsoring this video. Okay, now back to it. So as consumer goods continue to shrink in size while prices increase or remain the same, frustration among shoppers is reaching an all-time high, leaving many of us asking the same question. Why? Why are companies resorting to this tactic? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is a bit more complicated than it seems. At its core, shrinkflation is a response to economic pressures. Companies have faced rising costs for raw materials, labor, transportation, and more. There's no denying that. So businesses have been scrambling for ways to cope. And that's where things like shrinkflation come into play. Instead of directly raising prices, companies give you less for the same amount of money. And there's psychology behind why they do this. A 2004 Harvard study found that consumers are more sensitive to price hikes than subtle changes in product size. And this makes sense, right? You're more likely to notice if a candy bar jumps from $1 to $1.25 than if it quietly shrinks by 10%. Well, companies realized this and took the ball and ran with it. And ran, and ran, and ran. Take a look at this. Typically, when rising costs for raw materials, labor, and transportation squeeze corporate margins, we expect those margins to shrink, something we've observed consistently over the past 30 years. But in recent years, when these costs rose, something surprising happened. Corporate margins shot up. Way up. So despite higher costs, companies have record high profits. Why? Well, this is highly up for debate. Many are accusing some of the world's biggest companies of what's being dubbed greedflation, or extreme profiteering. They argue that
now we have greedflation. Greedflation. Companies make the product smaller yet also increase the price. Yeah. So, you know, consumers are not only dealing with, okay, so you took a piece, you took one of the Kit Kat bars off the chocolate bar. So we're getting like slightly less, but we're not paying the same price. We're paying more now for less. We're not paying the same for a little bit less. We're paying more. So, like, if you were just going to increase the price anyways, why shrink the product that you're getting? Because greed. That's why.
That corporations, particularly in developed economies like the US and UK, have used rising raw material costs, inflation, the war in Ukraine, and other global events as convenient excuses to raise prices while expanding profit margins to unprecedented levels. And there are studies, data
I will now call Kit Kats Kit Cars. I don't know why that came out like that, but you know, it is what it is. They are now forever Kit Cars instead.
points and experts who back this claim. In 2023, the largest review to date on greedflation examined 1,300 companies across 4 continents. It concluded that while supply chain bottlenecks and the war in Ukraine contributed to price hikes, companies' profits surged at a much faster rate than costs. In fact, profits for companies in major economies like the US, UK, Europe, Brazil, and South Africa jumped 30% from 2019 to 2023, vastly outpacing inflation. Additionally, the nonprofit Accountable.us found that many of the largest general consumer S&P 500 companies have admitted to benefiting from increased prices as their net profits increased year over year. Another study
But they do the same with rising tariffs, where they sneak an extra increase for the impacted regions. Yeah, just something so small that people generally wouldn't notice unless they're sitting there. But, you know, unless they're sitting there hugely paying attention. But otherwise, they wouldn't really notice it, but it would make a big difference on the other end.
done this past year from the Groundwork Collaborative found that despite corporations experiencing rising labor and input costs, they've been able to maintain and even expand their profit margins to levels well above historic norms. This trend has also alarmed many economists. Albert Edwards, a top veteran strategist with 4 decades in finance, called the current levels of corporate greedflation unprecedented and astonishing, adding, quote, "This cannot be ignored, and if this trend doesn't change, we may be looking at the end of capitalism." Pretty bold words. That said, with the studies, data points, and bold claims to support these arguments, economists lack a general consensus on inflation, shrinkflation, and greedflation. In fact, some argue that greedflation isn't real, claiming it's just business as usual. Corporations driven by shareholder interests are inherently greedy. That's not a unique phenomenon. It's simply how the free market and modern economy operates. No matter where you stand on the issue, whether you view
I mean, okay, so we're supposed to just let them keep getting away with it. They could just keep being more and more greedy until we're all just like shit in the ground or something. Like, okay.
Inflation as a natural occurrence of inflation, or you believe it's something a little bit more sinister. It's impossible to ignore its impact either way. Personally, I find myself somewhere in the middle. On one hand, many legitimate businesses have undoubtedly faced rising costs and reduced product sizes out of necessity. On the other hand, it's hard to deny that some corporations have exploited this environment to take advantage of consumers.
Take Kraft Heinz, for example. Kraft Heinz is a billion-dollar business, and it's a company frequently criticized for shrinking product sizes, especially in North America. In Canada, items like salad dressing bottles have shrunk from 475 milliliters to 425 milliliters. The same goes for Costco tomato sauce, which dropped from 650 milliliters to 600 milliliters. In the US, Kraft Heinz seems to be shrinking fewer products outright, but they're engaging in something arguably more deceptive. Kraft is altering ingredients and removing items from products, a practice some refer to as skimpflation. For instance, Kraft owns Lunchables, and over the years, the protein in their pizza kits have quietly dropped from 16 grams to just 14 grams. Now, the reason many point out Kraft as a company that's potentially exploited this environment to take advantage of consumers is because they are market leaders. They're one of the largest food and beverage companies globally, with annual revenue in the
Yeah, honestly, they have so much money. You think they need to do this out of necessity? I don't think so. I don't think so. I would be hard pressed to believe that. No wonder politicians and the media desperately tried to distract by getting us to fight with each other over social bullshit instead of the very real problems. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. And that is hugely my thing when anyone talks about tipping culture. Which I have a video to watch, but I don't know. But anyways, yeah. My opinion on the tipping culture is very hugely they're just distracting everyone and everyone's fighting among each other instead of facing the actual problem with that. I don't like the flation words. Feels gross. Julius Flation. Why is that? Why is that? Rootflation. What a crew. Inflation, shrinkflation, greedflation, and now skimflation. Oh, everything's gonna be flation. Hoshiflation, massacoreflation, warpflation. Never ends.
Of billions of dollars. To put it simply, they're not hurting for money, and across their wide range of products, they've quietly downsized portions or altered product ingredients, leaving customers paying the same for less.
But you know what's crazy and really makes you think? Listen to some of these responses companies give when people ask about these changes. Last fall, Tropicana redesigned its classic bottle, removing 6 ounces, and a spokesperson for Tropicana Brands Group told CNN that the change was made to address customer feedback, claiming the new bottle makes the orange juice easier to pour. Heinz said something equally ridiculous.
Oh yeah, we wanted it easier to pour, and we also wanted 6 milliliters less orange juice. 100%.
Last spring with their beans. They reduced the amount in a 415 gram tin
Not
from
the
51% to 50% beans, and stated the reasoning was to make it taste better. A few years ago, General Mills cut the size of its family-size cereal boxes from 19.3 ounces to 18.1 ounces. When asked about this by NPR, they claimed this change allows for more efficient truck loading, which is important in both reducing global emissions and offsetting increased costs associated with inflation. Here's one of my personal favorites though. A few years ago, when a spokesperson for Charmin was confronted by reporters from WBUR about shrinking the size of their toilet paper squares, they suggested it was a result of, quote, innovations that allow customers essentially to wipe more efficiently. I mean, seriously, how dumb do these corporations think we are? Wipe more?
We couldn't wipe our ass properly, so the toilet paper needed to be small. It needed to be smaller so it could be more accurate in the wiping of the shit. Yes, okay. Alright, noted. Noted. Yeah, the extra toilet paper always got in the way. Yep.
More efficiently? What a joke. If a company is generally facing supply chain bottlenecks or higher input costs, just be honest about it. Stop pretending like you are doing this because of the environment or some random new toilet paper innovation. And I think that's what makes all of this so frustrating. The lack of transparency and the disconnect between businesses and consumers. In today's world, image is everything. When you're shoving ads down our face and acting like you suddenly discovered a new way humans can wipe their butt, plus increased your pricing, plus started giving us less, it's a slap in the face. But that's just the business perspective. You'd think there'd be some laws to protect consumers against things like shrinkflation and deceptive marketing practices, right?
No.
Right?
No, why would there be that?
Well, some countries like Brazil, France, and South Korea have rolled out rules requiring companies to clearly label or warn consumers about product size or amount changes. In France earlier this year, they announced a decree requiring retailers to signal to consumers when a food or consumer product has undergone shrinkflation, an attempt to bring awareness to the issue. In South Korea, food manufacturers and suppliers can even face fines of up to $7,300 if they fail to to notify buyers of size reductions. It's too early to tell if these changes have made a significant impact, but they seem like steps in the right direction.
Damn.
Here in America, however, the legality of shrinkflation is harder to pin down. In the US, non-functional slack fill is prohibited unless it serves an appropriate purpose. Slack fill is legally defined as the difference between the actual capacity of a container and the volume of product inside. So when you open a bag of chips and find mostly air, that could be categorized as non-functional slack fill. And believe it or not, it's illegal. However, proving what constitutes non-functional slack fill is challenging, as many companies argue that the empty space is necessary. Plus, in the US, producers are required to already indicate the amount of volume, weight, or quantity of their products on their packaging labels. As a result, many instances of shrinkflation, such as slack fill, aren't currently viewed as fraud or misrepresentation. And as I mentioned earlier, shrinkflation has become such a big issue here in the States, it has officially entered the political ring. Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey recently launched a campaign and introduced a bill, yes, an actual bill, called the Shrinkflation Prevention Act of 2024. The legislation aims to give the FTC the authority to investigate and crack down on shady corporate practices like price gouging and deceptive product downsizing. While the intention is noble, not everyone is on board. Critics argue that without shrinkflation, prices would simply rise outright, making everyday products unaffordable for many. They point out, at least with shrinkflation, people can still buy.
Everyone always says this. And, like, I don't know how much I believe it. Like, I don't know. That's always the fallback. Oh, well, if we do this, though, then the price will rise for everyone. I don't know. I don't know that much info, so maybe I can't really comment on it. Depends on volume to price ratio. I'm just always of the opinion that they're just being as greedy as possible. Yeah, we don't know how much the prices would rise. So who knows? We have off-brand items for a reason. Yep. I almost exclusively buy off-brand now. I always buy the no name. No, all off-brand. Except freaking strawberry jam, because Jello refuses to eat any other type of strawberry jam unless it's the Smuckers. To me, they all taste the same, but I don't know. He says they taste different, so I'm like, frig my life. Guess I'm gonna go spend $10 on your stupid jam.
These items, even if they're getting less for their money. Then there are centrists who argue that businesses should be allowed to increase prices as they see fit, but if they do, it needs to be clear and obvious to the consumer. Ban these deceptive practices and actually enforce the law as it's written. As I mentioned earlier, there are already some fragments of laws that could apply to these situations, but there's a big difference between having laws on the books and actually enforcing them. Personally, I do think legislation like this could help, but if there's one thing I learned, it's that waiting for the government to save the day usually doesn't work. Real change tends to come from us, the everyday people. When consumers unite and demand better, companies have no choice but to listen. And that's where public shaming comes into play. I'm serious. Bringing awareness to this issue and voicing your complaints has seemingly worked when it comes to fighting shrinkflation. Take Toblerone, for example. Back in 2014, they reduced the weight of their bars by 25% by increasing the gaps between their signature chocolate triangles. People weren't having it, and everyone started complaining about it online. After getting called out, Toblerone actually reversed the change and brought back the original design. Then there's Chipotle, which I exposed in a documentary last spring. As I and many others called out the skimping, Chipotle's CEO eventually admitted they were cutting corners. He promised to fix it, and guess what? It's reported portion sizes started to improve. These are
Oh my god, this reminds me, so sometimes we get like these chicken wraps from Tim Hortons, and these things are so tiny now. Like, I actually can't even believe it. When they hand me the wrap, I'm just like, is this like a snack wrap? Or something? Because, where is the rest of it? Maybe Louis Rossmann should expand his call-out wiki to include shrinkflation, as he calls out a lot of anti-consumer stuff. I've never heard of him. I've never heard of Louis Rossmann. I didn't even know there was a call-out wiki either. That's kind of cool. But yeah, he should. He should definitely include this in there. Damn.
Perfect examples of how when companies mess with us consumers, loud and collective outrage can actually make a difference. And I think that's the takeaway. Yeah, we're paying more and getting less, but that doesn't mean we should just roll over and accept it. If you spot shrinkflation or any deceptive marketing practices, call it out, post about it online. Follow consumer advocates who are trying to hold these companies accountable. There's a fantastic website run by consumer advocate Edgar Dworsky, who has become the go-to expert on shrinkflation. His site, mouseprint.org, serves as a hub for informed shoppers to track product shrinkage. I highly recommend checking it out along with his socials. And finally, if you can, vote with your wallet.
Cool.
Stop buying brands that are pulling these stunts. I know that's easier said than done, but when companies see sales decline, change seems to happen. If enough people say no, they're forced to listen. So if there's one thing you take away from the video, I hope it's that. Don't stay silent. As always, thank you so much for watching. A special thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this video. Click the link down below, check them out. It really helps support the channel. And then of course, a special extra mega thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. I will see you guys and everybody else next time.
All right, I'm gonna go shout it from the top of the hills, man. I want my Cadbury cream eggs to be the same size they were before. I'm tired, and the freaking Tim Hortons chicken wraps and whatever other wraps. Want them all to be back to the same size that they were. Same price. Actually, no, more. More. Yep. Pay more for the wraps and then they're smaller. Yep. Absolutely absurd. I want my ready-to-eat spaghetti sauce to be the same price as before. I don't mind the shrinkflation. Like, honestly. I would almost say that I'd rather pay the slightly higher price, but at least keep the size the same. Like, I don't want to pay more and have less. Like, what the heck? At least I'll pay more, but I'll have a bit more, or the same at least. They shrinked it from 1 liter to 900 milliliters and doubled the price. Oh my gosh! Wow. So freaking...